And I will share the screen. Just a moment. Where is that? Just a sec. And there we are. Okay, so it's ready whenever you are.
Okay, well, thank you very much. All right, then I would like to call to order the Middleton Board of Selectmen meeting for this Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. At this time, I'd like to make sure it's known that this meeting is being recorded. And this is not our first Zoom meeting, but I'll state for myself, due to the state of the emergency in Massachusetts due to COVID-19 outbreak, this meeting is being held via Zoom, an Ethernet-based meeting space. Persons who wish to view can join the meeting by going on the town website and following instructions there. I guess with that, I'll bring up the first, I'm sorry, almost got ahead of myself. If I could take the time right now to make a mention that in the mail this week, residents will be receiving a postcard that is our first Middleton Rail Trail Alliance fundraising drive. These cards were created back before the COVID outbreak, and we suspended mailing them for fundraising purposes for obvious reasons. But this week, you'll find these cards showing up at all addresses in town. And just wanted to mention that so they don't find their way to the junk bin, that you might want to take a look at the group of citizens in town that are working hard at bringing a rail trail to the town of Middleton. Okay, with that, I guess I'd like to bring up the first item on the agenda, which will be the discussion and explanation of the warrant numbers 2028 and 2102. If you would, Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We actually have a third warrant for today that Tanya will put up, but I'll start with 2028. That was the final warrant for the fiscal year that ended on June 30th. On the payroll side, $55,924, and on the bills payable side, $308,761. A couple of items of interest: $16,689 for street resurfacing for the Public Works Department, and $76,266 for purchase of power. I'll add that on the payroll end of things, for the most part, that covered just the last 2 days of June. So we had a split payroll, 2 days in June, the remainder of the pay period in July. On warrant number 2102, which was in the packet that went out the other day, which is the second warrant for the new fiscal year. On payroll, $475,800, and on bills payable, and I apologize, the total did not appear on the warrant sheet that we sent out with the packet. So the total for bills payable is $589,184, 589,184. Of that, the usual payroll deductions in the amount of $68,316. Some under accounting, we had our insurance, our property and casualty insurance, and our workers' comp insurance for the year in the amount of $286,480. We pay that at the beginning of the year and receive a discount on that. Further down under the library, $25,710 for the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium membership, and then for MELD, $173,889 for purchase of power. And then on a separate warrant, warrant 2103, that Tanya just put up on payroll, $515,241, and on bills payable, $862,006. Payroll deductions of $64,397. Our assessor's software license, Patriot license, $5,850. Under DPW, $16,826 for waste disposal, and then $14,000 168 for tree removal, and then under MELD, purchase of power, $417,245. Sarah Wood, our CFO, has reviewed these and asks the board's positive endorsement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sheehan. So we want to vote for this, correct?
So I'll move to accept the warrants as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Could I ask the clerk for a roll call vote, please?
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
Yes,
Selectman Cassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, we'd like to see if we give a motion for accepting the minutes for open session of the June 30th, 2020 meeting.
I would make a motion to accept them as written.
And a second.
second,
We have a motion and a second. Again, I'll ask the clerk for a roll call vote, please.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
yes,
Selectman Cassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously, accepting the minutes. Up next, Town Administrator, Mr. Sheehan, with updates and reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a handful of things tonight. I'll try to keep it brief since we have a long agenda. The legislature recently passed and the governor signed the Chapter 90 authorization for the current fiscal year 21. There had been some hope, and I think I had reported a couple of months ago that there was a likelihood that we were going to see an increase in our Chapter 90 monies. Chapter 90 pays for maintenance and paving of public ways, public roads. Unfortunately, presumably due to the COVID crisis, there was not an increase in our Chapter 90 approval or in the state's Chapter 90 authorization. So it remains at $200 million, which is the amount that it's been at for the last several years, the base amount anyways. And for Middleton, that's about just shy of $310,000. So that's been approved. We'll put that to good use in road work for the coming year. The Maple and Liberty Street reconstruction is ongoing. The contractor has been out there, including on Saturdays, working generally about 7 to 5 most days. Details on site at all times. So no change to the schedule. They're still expecting to be wrapping this project up around Labor Day. Last week, the governor signed a new travel order for Massachusetts, governing visitors to the state, and in many respects, governing residents returning to the state from out-of-state travel, and particularly travel to particular hotspots in other parts of the country. So anybody who is coming into the state or returning from out of state has to fill out a form and either self-quarantine or provide a negative COVID test. There is teeth behind this, and this is punishable by a fine of up to $500. So that goes into effect. Tanya, help me out. Beginning of the month, August 1?
August 1st, correct.
August 1, thank you. Speaking of COVID, we continue to see a good trend in our COVID cases, and that's been for about the last month and a half. So the efforts that we put into place early on, we're seeing, and that the state government put into place early on, are really showing the benefits and paying dividends now. We continue to see good results there. We don't talk much about debt. We typically don't borrow a lot of money in Middleton. We are doing a borrowing this year. We're also looking at Sarah Wood and Belinda Young have been working with our financial advisors to look at some of our older debt and see if there are opportunities to refinance some of that debt. And the 2008 library bond appears to be one that we could refinance and see some savings from. So we're going to be talking about that further in the next few days, and then at the next whenever the board meets again, we'll probably have if things turn out the way we think that they will, I'll probably have a request for the board to vote to authorize us to issue bonds and refund that that older debt that we have. It's the debt that we're looking at is exempt debt, so it's exempt under Proposition 2.5. It doesn't free up our budget. So often, if we refinance debt, you end up with more capacity in the budget. That's not the case here, but it's certainly beneficial to the taxpayer, and all the benefit, in fact, would go to the taxpayer. So, so we want to take advantage of that if we can. We recently received the notice from Chief DG that he is planning to retire later this year. So we are in the process of putting together a solicitation for a firm to help us with the recruitment of our next chief, and I'll keep the board up to date on that as well. And then finally, we had talked about meeting only once in July and August, and our August meeting was tentatively scheduled for the 25th. I'd like to suggest, if board members are available, moving that up a week and doing that on the 18th cuts down on the lag between meetings, pulls us a little bit further away from Labor Day holiday as well. So we'd have 3 weeks to the next meeting, and then 3 weeks after that to our first meeting in September. So we don't have to decide that tonight. I can follow up with the board members separately. If we have anything tonight that continues, we'll have to make a decision at that point. So, but that's all I've got for updates, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sheehan. Okay, so on to number 2 will be our public comment period for our meetings that we've adopted. I don't know if we know in advance, or do we have anyone now that wishes to take part and speak within the public comment period?
Yeah, I would recommend that people unmute themselves, and I can let you know who's unmuted themselves and call on them. So it looks like Nancy Jones would like to make a public comment.
Okay, and I would like to ask if it has anything to do with other items on the agenda. That I only ask that you'll have ample time to discuss those then. I just wanted to put that out there. Go ahead, Mrs. Jones.
Hello.
Hi, Nancy. Yeah, go ahead. Public comment.
Hi, how are you? No,
Hi.
I had nothing to say. Oh, good. How are you?
Okay, Nancy, I'm going to put you back on mute then.
All
Nice
right.
to hear from you. So if anyone else has a public comment, just unmute yourself and I will inform our chair. Nope, doesn't look like anything else.
Tanya,
Yes.
Doug
Oh,
Nichols.
Doug. Oh, you're
Hi.
okay. Sorry. There we go. Thank you, Doug.
Just confirming that we'll have the opportunity to speak later on during other items, agenda items.
Most certainly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. All right, and if I might take a moment in gaining the recent news of Chief DG Inventorio's decision to retire, I'm sure we'll have many opportunities over the next 6 months, but I just personally, and on behalf of the board, behalf of the town, as a member of the Middleton Police Department, extend a big thanks to all the good things that Chief DG has done for us in the town here in Middleton. I just wanted to say that for the town. Okay, on to number 3. So tonight we'll have a joint session with the members of the Middleton Planning Board to appoint alternate planning board members for a term of 1 year. Alternates appointed tonight will serve until next June 2021. This time I would like to ask if there are candidates here interested in being appointed. No. I take there's no one present for that, or how we want to proceed then?
I was under the impression that there was at least one individual that was interested. We don't ask for anything in advance for these things because it's typically done as an in-person discussion
Right.
and nomination. So
Okay.
there's always the opportunity for either members of the Board of Selectmen or the remaining members of the Planning Board, in this case, to nominate somebody if they know that there's somebody that's interested that we're not aware of. But
So the first question I'd ask is, who do we actually have here for the planning board? Obviously we have a quorum of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm wondering what our quorum is from the planning board.
I am here, Jeff Garber.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
All right.
So, is Jeff the only member of the planning board that's on this call?
I
Sorry,
believe
I'm
so.
scrolling through the list.
I believe the two current alternates are interested. I don't want to speak for them, but I think we were under the impression that they were going to be reappointed, but I don't really want to speak for them.
All right. I would only ask then, would it be fair to ask for nominations in the lack of their presence?
Yeah, I mean, Andy, have we received any information from them that they want to continue to serve? I know they serve on an alternate basis and only in the cases when there's a lack of a quorum or folks that have to recuse themselves.
Right. Yeah. So my understanding was that Anthony DiGregorio was interested. I didn't hear whether John Kichter was interested. If I could, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask the clerk what the process would be.
Sure.
If somebody was nominated and voted tonight, and then they decided that they actually didn't want the seat, do they just refuse to take the oath, and then it just becomes vacant again?
So that's a little different with this alternate appointment.
Right.
So did they respond that they were interested in being reappointed? I guess Tanya had worked on that. Can she speak to that?
Oh, that, as far as I know, everyone was interested, as.
So they returned their response.
Hold on, just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I think. they
Okay,
did.
so if we were to go ahead and appoint the current alternates for an additional year, and they didn't come in and get sworn in, they would then not accept the nomination.
Okay.
And then I would alert you folks, and we'd go back at it again at another session. And that's the best we can do, but I just want to make sure that they in fact wanted to be
Right.
reappointed.
Yeah,
So,
so
Mr.
as you were-
Chairman, I would just ask if we're unclear if the two alternates are interested. I mean, I think Mr. DiGregorio is interested, but others were not sure. So I would expect, and I know, Jeff, you're the only member of the planning board here. I don't expect you to speak for your entire board, but I would expect that we can likely move this to our next agenda of
I
our
would.
next selectmen's meeting, and confirm with the incumbent candidates that they are interested in being reappointed for one more year, and B, if they're not, have some time to work to recruit new candidates that may be interested in serving, rather than make an appointment based on what we think.
What we
Yeah,
think
so-
we know. Good.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree, Brian.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I just, as the others were speaking, I checked some emails. I did see an email from Anthony that he is interested. He thought he was going to be able to join the
Okay.
meeting tonight.
Well, that's good.
He did have an earlier conflict that he thought he'd be able to get around, but so I think if you wanted to take action on that one and
Sure.
then continue this to the next meeting, and then we don't have to repost for the other vacancy.
Can we act since that we don't have a quorum of the planning board?
You can, yeah. So you've got a quorum of the Board of
Right.
Selectmen, and then the way the statute reads, it says the remaining members of the other boards. So,
Okay.
and as you peel it back, sometimes you could have a resignation or two on a small, like a member of three, a committee of three, that would leave you with less than a quorum anyways. So you might be in a case where you couldn't have a quorum present.
So I'll move to appoint Anthony DiGregorio as a planning board alternate.
Second.
Second that motion?
Very good. We have a motion and a second for Mr. DiGregorio to serve
And
an
that-
alternate
and that
planning
is-
board.
And that is
Excuse
for a term through
June.
Just a 1 year. Yeah.
June 30th, 2021.
Correct.
Would be after the election, correct. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for Mr. DiGregorio. Then I will entertain a roll call vote from the clerk.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis,
Yes.
myself, yes.
And then
And
We could
the
ask.
planning board member.
Oh, and Jeff Garber.
Yes.
Was there a second planning board member? I'm sorry, I don't see enough the name on the screen.
I think that's it.
Oh, that's it. My apologies. Okay, then that then unanimously passes the appointment of Anthony DiGregorio to the alternate planning board seat to serve until next June 2021. On the second opening, then I would request that someone make a motion that we could suspend that position for further consideration.
So
Mr.
moved.
Chairman, I move that we defer any further action on the second position until we have confirmation of candidate or candidates that are interested, and place this on the agenda for the next selectmen's meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Okay, if I could, Mr. Moreski, please, a roll call vote.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis,
Yes.
myself, yes. Jeff Garber,
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes unanimously that we will take this up at our next opportunity that we're aware of, that we have someone that we want to nominate for that position. Thank you very much, folks. On the number 4 on the agenda is an additional joint session, this time with members of Middleton Housing Authority, to fill a vacant term on the Housing Authority due to a failure to elect. I would ask to, do we have a person that we could announce that could be appointed to serve until May 2021 annual election?
Mr. Chair, we have Arthur Berendino.
Very good.
He was one of the candidates in the failure to elect. I'm not sure if he's on here. He was notified.
Okay,
The other candidate withdrew.
she did. Okay, very much. Thank you very much. All right, I guess the same questions before us. Are we confident enough to go ahead with this appointment tonight as he's not here in person?
I'd like to speak on behalf of the Housing Authority. I've
Okay.
met with him several times. He seems genuinely interested.
Great.
It's less than a 1-year appointment. He would have to run. It is the 5-year position, but he has to
Okay.
run at the next election. He's aware of that, and he was accepting of that condition. So I would recommend him. I'd like to see that that vacancy filled.
Right. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for your assistance in that. All right, then, with such time, could I like to ask a Board of Selectmen or a member of a House Authority for a nomination?
I'll nominate, oh, go ahead. Gus.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll nominate Arthur Berendino as the 5-year member, but with a 1-year reelection. So he'll be a less than 1-year appointment.
I second that.
Thank you. So I have a nomination and a second, and then I would move to Mr. Moreski for a roll call vote for the Housing Authority appointment.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Casiotis.
Yes.
Eileen, are you the only one from the Housing Authority?
No, we have a few, so let me give you the names, Todd. So it's myself, and I am yes.
Okay.
Doug Lacoste,
I am a yes.
Karen McCafferty, Karen is waving, she's not off mute.
Press the button.
Oh, yes.
And Karen,
Yes. Yes.
okay. And Maria,
Yes.
Francis,
Yes.
okay. We got our whole board. It's unanimous.
That's unanimous for the appointment of Mr. Berardini for the remainder of this term and the 5-year term. Thank you very much, people. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 5. Okay, so item number 5 is going to be discussion and update of public school reopening plans. And I believe Selectman Prentakis, you might have some information on that for us.
Yes. I'm gonna provide an update on what Masco is doing. I also sat in on the elementary school committee meeting yesterday, so I can fill in some of that. And I believe Scott Morrison is on the call, so he can probably add, further.
Great.
And, under the state's orders, I think we all know that, school districts need to develop plans for 3 situations: with all students in school, all students learning remotely, and a hybrid model of some of rotating students, in school. So you have to start with kind of assessing your physical facility as to its suitability for meeting the minimum suggested social distancing, which is 3 feet. So Masco, is undertaking that. Undertook a parent survey, and it put together a group of over 30 people that then split into 3 to analyze each of these models. And that group is composed of administrators, department heads, nurses, teachers, facilities management, dining services, health departments, the school's doctor, which is Dr. Alara, and they're actively working on that. Recently, the state issued guidance with respect to busing, and basically, the buses have to run at a third of capacity, which makes it challenging to have all students, in school. And you have to, analyze how does kids get into the school, how do they come out and maintain social distancing, how do the buses get sanitized, between, trips. There's also, I think yesterday, additional guidance issued for classes that use shared equipment like labs and art classes, etc. For Masco, the Teachers Association has filed a notice that it intends to impact bargain each of the 3 plans, and therefore, before any of the plans can be finalized, those negotiations, have to take place. The decision as to which plan is, implemented, will be made sometime in the second part of August based on local conditions. And all districts have been advised that, there will be a certain amount of parents that will feel uncomfortable sending their kids to school. So each district has to have plans for educating those students under any scenario. And to help offset the costs that will be associated with these various plans, Masco is, exploring the various, outside funding sources, MEMA, FEMA, remote learning technology, essential grants, elementary and secondary education emergency relief fund, the CVRF aid to municipalities and to school reopening grants. So there's, a busy time. The Masco School Committee is meeting on Wednesday, August 5th, to get an update from where the planning, stands on two unrelated Masco issues. For FY20, there was a favorable budget variance of 436 expected as of June 15th. The year is in the process of being closed now. And the final notice is that Masco graduation is Saturday, this Saturday at 9 a.m. It's outside with, limited participation to maintain social distancing.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Was there a mention was Scott? Was he able to give us some input also this evening? Is that true?
Hi, Rick. I'm here.
Hi, sir. If you
How are you?
please. Good, very good. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation. Costa, you too, to be the superintendent. That was a very well stated update and report. And Costa, we appreciated your remarks at the Middleton School Committee meeting last night and sharing your thoughts as both school committee and selectmen. So thank you for joining us at that meeting last night. It's very much appreciated. I would echo a lot of what Costa said. I think that report was very, very thorough. One of the challenges we're all working through as superintendents is that the guidance that we have been kind of pouring through and reading through, it comes out at various and unique times, I would say. We received guidance as recently as last Friday. It can be anywhere from 10 to 30 pages long, and trying to make your way through that at the same time as you're trying to work and develop the planning for the 3 plans that Costa had spoken to. I do have a few slides that I'm happy to go through either just verbally, Andy. I certainly don't want to intrude on the meeting. I can just give a verbal update or take people through the slides, whatever the committee think would be the most helpful.
Yeah, we can pop those up, Scott. Tanya, those were in the email that I sent you.
Okay, yeah, just give me a moment to find the right ones.
It'll say DESI guidance info, Tanya, will be the name of the slide.
And Scott, to your point of the unique times, I noticed that the most recent notification that DESI provided was released Friday evening.
Yeah.
Usually,
Yeah,
I mean, in the world of communication, when something's released on a Friday, it's usually not good news.
Fine, that would be a very accurate statement. We've received a lot of things on a Friday. So just real quick, this will just kind of provide a visual to what Costa talked about when presenting this. We had Middleton School Committee last night, we have Boxford School Committee on Wednesday, and we have Topsfield School Committee on Thursday. So I appreciate Andy inviting me Tuesday to be with you to fill out my week, Andy. I appreciate that.
I wanted to make sure you didn't have a free night, Scott.
I appreciate that, Andy. It's very thoughtful of you, and I will return the favor at some point. So the guidance documents from the state that we have, as you can see there, this is right from one of the pieces of information from the Department of Ed. The red checks are the ones that we have. We have processes for handling a COVID case. We have facilities and operations, transportation, athletics, special programs. Costa alluded to all those. The big asterisk on all of the guidance documents is that it's being released in late July 2020 and may be revised. The unchecked ones we're waiting on. We did receive some further information about remote learning, so we can kind of put a half check on that one, but if you could buzz to the next slide. As Costa mentioned, 3 plans: in-person learning with new safety requirements, hybrid learning, and remote planning for all possibilities. On the far left there, return without restrictions. That's sort of what March 1st looked like of this year, when school looked like school. That's not in the cards right now, as we know. We're monitoring the situation and listening to the medical and science data and planning for 3 possibilities. The next slide, Tanya. So it was the early guidance that came out, the initial guidance document. It talked about schools should aim for a physical distance of 6 feet when feasible, and 3 feet is the minimum distance allowed. Derek and I have had conversations, and I think certainly from the Board of Health perspective, they would prefer 6 feet, not like a 6 or 3. They would prefer 6 feet and as close as possible to 6 feet. And I think we feel the same way, certainly as schools. The further we can get and closer we can get to 6 feet, the better. These pictures here show what desks look like at 3 feet apart, and kind of looks just like a classroom would normally look. There's not a lot of total spacing there. The next slide, please, Tanya. In one of the other documents, the COVID guidance protocols for responding, they talk about this idea of close contact. Close contact of a COVID-19 case is being within less than 6 feet of a COVID-19 case for at least 10 to 15 minutes in a classroom, or having direct contact with an infectious secretions of a COVID-19 case. And if you go to the next slide, what it talks about is in elementary and other school situations, what they would consider close contact would be anyone in a classroom, really. In our elementary level, we are self-contained classrooms. And so all students within a cohort would be contacts. And so they would have to be either quarantined for 14 days or tested in order to come back to school. And so what you'll see emerge, and Costa really spoke about this, is this idea of full in-person learning is a great goal, but as the restrictions sort of tighten around protocols and around the foot guidance, the distance guidance. And if you go to the next slide, please, Tanya. In the protocols document, these are all the various protocols that our nurses are planning for. We've got to plan for every one of these. Protocol if someone tests positive or a student or staff member is symptomatic or asymptomatic, and where did it happen, and multiple cases and new cases, and if there's a statewide regression to a previous reopening phase. So our nurses are working through all of this information. That was from the protocol guidance that we received. Go to the next slide, Tanya. The transportation guidance, Costa spoke very well about this. It's spot on. This idea of that's a drone view of a bus. So just picture the roof off a bus, so to speak, and you're looking down into it. The red dots represent how kids will be able to sit on a bus. On one side of the aisle, window seat, aisle seat, window seat, aisle seat, window seat, aisle seat, and then the opposite on the other side. They list the bus numbers there. An 83 passenger bus, the maximum allowed is 27 kiddos. 77 student bus, the maximum allowed to be 25. So you're at about a third, as Costa had spoken about. And so you can see there's another sort of restricting factor about this idea of full in-person. Next slide, please, Tanya. The strategies that the department provides add additional routes to existing bus schedules. You can imagine there's a financial cost to that. Stagger the school start and day end times by cohort, encourage parents to transport their kiddos, encourage or facilitate carpooling with fixed cohorts, or promote walking and biking to school. So some of the strategies that the department is suggesting. If you go to the next slide, please. Facilities, looking at all sorts of facility items that would have to be worked through: hand washing and hand sanitizing station, barriers, configuration of desks, walking down a hallway, all the logistics associated with returning to school, food service and distribution, visitor protocols, arrival and dismissal, medical waiting room procedures. We have to create an isolation room in each of our schools. We have reopening teams, just as Costa identified at Masco, that are working on logistical things to figure out how could this happen, what would it look like, bringing kids back into the building with spacing and distancing and masks and all of these other pieces. You can go to the next slide, please. From a learning space perspective, think about an elementary classroom. We have worked really hard, and Middleton has been so extraordinarily supportive of the town of Middleton, and all of the boards in Middleton have been so supportive of the work that we do at the elementary levels, in creating an atmosphere and a space in our classrooms that is conducive to the individual needs of our students, and allowing them to really learn how to collaborate and communicate and work on teamwork and understand what it means to be a part of a team and working together. Classrooms have changed greatly since, I can tell you, when I went to school. It looks very different than it did, even 10 years ago. And the little red arrow there, it's a lot of words on here. Just go to the red arrow. There are a lot of words on here, so go to the red arrow. What they talk about is clearing classrooms and other spaces in the buildings, any non-essential items. So disincentivizing the spaces where kids could gather. So the kidney-shaped tables in a classroom where a teacher works with a small group of kids, the rugged area in a first or second grade class where you do a small group math lesson. All of those things really coming out of this classroom. And just picture a classroom with desks in it, spaced apart, students in masks, teacher in masks. And it's a very different looking experience than what school, certainly would have looked like prior to the pandemic. And that may be it. I don't know if there's one more, Tanya. I think that's the last one, correct? Great, okay.
That's it.
Yeah, so just, those are just little excerpts from all of the guidance documents that we have received. We're waiting on, additional guidance documents. There's another call with the commissioner tomorrow. We've had regular calls with the Commissioner of Education, Jeff Riley, on a regular basis. Friday, Andy may have already mentioned this to the board. Andy, did you already? If not, I can. On Friday's field trip. Andy, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Andy.
Well, it was, I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, it's on Monday, right, Scott?
Monday.
Sorry, Monday, and yeah, Topsfield and Boxford are Friday. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did send that out to the board.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
it's
that's
worth mentioning again.
Perfect. Yeah. So Monday meeting to have our school committee and board and Andy and Derek and town officials an opportunity to see what the reopening committees are seeing, do a walkthrough, see the schools, actually get on a bus, see what it's like to sit in that configuration with the PPE on. The recent guidance that Brian talked about that we received on Friday was around classes that have shared objects like art and PE and music and things like that. And one square that we're trying to circle, or one circle that we're trying to square is, the guidance talks about students in grade 2 and above have to wear a mask. But then there's this comment that every student on a bus would have to wear a mask. Every student in PE, if it's indoors, would have to wear a mask. Every student in art or music, if it's indoors, would have to wear a mask. And so you can see where some of the, pieces of information that we're trying to sort through in real time comes into play. So looking forward to Monday's gathering and an opportunity to have our selectmen join the school committee and Andy and other town folks, members of the principals and other members of the team, administrative team, to kind of get a firsthand sense of some of the challenges and logistical things that we'll all be working through.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moore.
Just
Yeah,
a couple
go
of comments, and
Sure.
I'm hoping to be there on Monday to see this firsthand, and Scott and Costa Masco as well. I mean, I don't know how you guys are doing what you're doing right now. I know some of the big logistical issues is going to be busing, and it may not even be the buses are available, or the drivers for the buses may not be available. Leads me to think that there's likely going to be a lot more parents, should there be either a full opening or a staggered hybrid formula. There'll be a lot more parents driving, and I'm sure DG, your department will be engaged in that, because I can think about what the logistical nightmare would be of even a doubling of the number of parents coming through in a morning compared to what is normal. And I assume some of the big cost items that you're trying to grapple with right now that you probably can't even get your arms around are the pretty expansive increase in the cleaning that is going to happen that will not be able to be done by the staff you have now. That will either be contracted out or additional folks hired. Obviously the transportation costs, and then finally the cost to actually backfill when there is going to be vacancies in positions due to folks that are unable to be in person, God forbid, are ill, or any items like that, which leads me to, this is all going to be happening at a time that you have to submit your plan before the state actually tells us what our Chapter 70 dollars are going to look like. We're probably not going to know that until October or November, to be honest with you. They may come to a consensus, but the budget's not going to be passed until then. So, Andy, I know that there has been some dollars that are either have come or are coming to cities and towns that are supporting COVID-related items. Some of that has gone to our PPE and others. But what, and I'm not asking for a full dollar amount, but I'm trying to get my arms around what is available to towns. I know the state has talked about some funds that would go to the school districts, but I know they're not going to have enough to fill these gaps. And my concern is that then we're, having to make illogical decisions around what is being offered within the classes, art, music, and others because of budget issues.
Yeah, so under the CARES Act, which was one of the stimulus packages that was passed by Congress, there was money set aside for cities and towns, and for Middleton it was over $800,000, and that is simply broken out by taking that entire pot of money for Massachusetts cities and towns and dividing it up by population. It's unclear whether that will all remain available, that all of that 800,000. We've put in the first round of that, and it was about $30,000 or $33,000. That was for expenses that we incurred between March and June 30th, really. There'll be another round of funding in, it sounds like it'll probably be in October or November. And certainly, I think we'll have a better handle by then on some of these larger costs that we're going to have, like schools. And we're also trying to get our arms around how regional schools tap into that CARES Act funding as well, and that's not fully clear at this point.
Yeah, that's a hole that was missed in that program. Big
Yeah,
time.
and I haven't heard it discussed in the follow-up congressional packages. I think it's something that will be plugged at the state level, because this is sort of like block grant money that comes from the feds. It goes to the state, and then the state, within the parameters that the feds set, determine how that money is distributed. So I think that will be addressed in the coming weeks. The short answer to your initial question, Brian, was we'll do what we can, whether it's through CARES Act funding or local funding, to make sure that the schools have what they need in order to operate safely. There's just so many moving parts to all of this, and the financing kind of gets forgotten at certain points, because we're just trying to figure out the logistics and what we need to do in order to do this. And then as you get deeper and deeper into that, at some point you go, oh yeah, we got to figure out how we're going to pay for this, because we don't have any money for this. So
unlike the federal government, we can't just print it. So
Exactly.
Right. So we have to remain balanced, and as do the other 350 cities and towns in Massachusetts, as well as the state government. So misery loves company, and there's plenty of company to go around for this thing. And but we're fortunate here that we've got a really strong working relationship with Scott and his team and the school committee. That's helping us, and I think the same exists in Boxford and Topsfield as well as with Masco. So you don't see that everywhere, and so that's a very much a positive situation that we have here compared to a lot of places. So we're in regular communication.
Do we have any line of sight with Essex Tech at all of some understanding of where they are with this mix? And given that so many of their programs are hands-on.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I haven't talked to Heidi Riccio to see how they're approaching things. I think the one advantage that they have is that the shop programs in tech schools tend to be smaller numbers. So you may be dealing with shop classes of 15 kids. And so it's a little bit easier, I think, and I'm no expert on vocational schooling, but I think it would seem intuitive that there's at least the opportunity for a little bit more space, or to spread the kids out in those shop settings. In the academic settings, it's the same. I think they're going to run into the same thing that Scott is running into and that Masco is running into. But I'll see what we can get out of Heidi Riccio at Essex Tech.
And I would just close just to thank you as well, and the team in Middleton. Since at the Tri-Town, as everybody knows, we have the unique opportunity to bring 3 towns along at the same time. We have our 3 school committees and 3 boards and 3 town managers. And since March, we've had every 2 weeks, we've been on the call. I've pulled together a meeting with the 3 town managers, the public health folks in the 3 towns, some other school facility staff and nursing, and Middleton is always an active and involved participant in those calls every 2 weeks. And I just, want the board to know how much I appreciate and value the relationship that the elementary schools have with the town of Middleton. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Was there anyone else, any further discussion or any updates on the reopening plan of the schools? No? Okay, then again, thank you for all your efforts. That's, I'm sure it's.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Scott. On the next item will be a review and vote on a proposed intermunicipal agreement for partial funding of a school resource officer between Masconomet Regional School District and the towns of Middleton, Boxford, and Topsfield, and their respective chiefs of police. I would like to recuse myself from this item, being part of the PD, and if I could ask one of the members to take the gavel. I don't know if I should assign it or will somebody, should I assign that? No one's jumping up. Selectman Cresta, would you mind sharing item number 7?
Sure, okay. Thanks, Rick. So in our packet this evening is a copy of the draft memorandum of understanding between the respective police departments in Boxford, Topsfield, and Middleton, as well as the Masconomet Regional School District to support the creation, funding, and operation of a school resource officer. So I know we have Costa here, who also serves as a member of the school committee, and then Chief DG, who has been a part of the as one of the 3 police chiefs in the 3 communities that have been discussing in the creation of this MOU. And I know, Andy, you've been involved as well. Just a couple of initial comments I've had. I've spent some time and read this. I understand the history here. I also understand that the growing need of such a position at Masconomet. A couple of concerns I have, but I'll open it up for either Costa or Chief DG to actually provide a little bit more commentary around this.
Just as by way background, in the recent past, Boxford has been primarily, sending an officer over, to Masco, and their Board of Selectmen asked that they get compensated for their sending an officer over there, since they were, sending it, at about 80% of the time. Masco informed Boxford that in order to compensate the sending police department for the officer, it could only do so if there is an intermunicipal agreement among the 3 towns. So this was the background in generating, this agreement. This agreement could go on for 25 years, but to me, it lacks some issue, some clauses that you would want to see in such a long-term contract. For instance, how the days are divided, and that would change over time. Boxford, has been sending an officer 80% of the time, but that may change in the future. Topsfield, may want to send an officer over there closer to its share of the enrollment. So there has to be a mechanism for adjusting that. What happens, if, the officer, goes there and for some reason cannot stay there the entire length of day? Is that town being compensated for the entire day or a partial day? Does it create an obligation to provide an SRO? How do you go about amending this, over the course of time? So what I would suggest is that this, be edited so to be a 1-year agreement with the points that I've brought up and any others that, the cost concern to be ironed out over the next, 3 to 5 months so that it can be, a true multi-year agreement can be signed. And this, changing this to a 1-year agreement is just a matter of eliminating a couple of sentences and rewriting the term clause.
Okay, Costa, Chief, I don't know if you have any more to add to that. I know you've been in the midst of the discussions around this.
Yeah, this is nothing new. This is something we've been doing for many, many years. Mike Lacoste was there for 5 years. Adam Massini's been there for 2 or 3 years. And now we're going to put Mike Linehan in that position. The only thing different is now we're getting reimbursed for it. We've been doing this for many, many years. We have a system with the 3 chiefs. We made agreements. Yes, Boxford is there the majority of the time, but it's in their town. Now I think the fact that there'll be some monetary cost, it will allow the officer to stay there for the day. Before we let them go, and if we ran short, we bring them back to town. But now we can backfill that officer to be there for the day. So that won't interrupt our overtime budget as it did in the past. Before, we used to try to give the officers some overtime on their days off. Mainly we had them there on their days on, and it would, would just make for one less officer in town. So now having the ability to be able to pay the officer or backfill that officer, I think it'll be a better program for us to participate in. Topsfield's the same thing. They've asked for commitments from us. We've given them days of what we're going to be doing. So I think that this intermunicipal agreement is just based upon the money issue. We've had a municipal agreement for 10 years with them on the SRO. And I did have a conversation with the police chief yesterday because, as you know, some of the new police reform, it was dealing with some of the SRO programs. I've been advised that Masco is 100% behind the police and want them there. So I think it's going to continue, and I think it's going to be a good program. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the other members or Andy?
No, the only thing I'd add, Brian, is I think Costa raised some good points, and I wouldn't expect that there'd be too much difficulty in making the adjustments that he talked about, and I think it does make a lot of sense and make sure that everybody is covered and that that none of the towns get roped into an agreement that they then find, at some point in the future, find to be burdensome. So I think if we can take it up for this year with the idea of revising it over the coming months for a longer term solution, I think that makes a lot of sense.
So I guess we likely don't need to take a formal voter action on this. I'd probably just ask that Andy and you, Chief, kind of direct what we're interested in back to the both Masconomet and to the respective 2 partners in this, Boxford and Topsfield, to see if there's both interested in understanding of doing such an amendment, but at the same time state that this isn't something we're going to put off till next year and then try to figure it out. That we'll continue to work on. And I agree with you, Costa. I think 25 years is probably too long to lock us into something that, would require 2 of the 3 towns to be willing to crack open and amend.
I would suggest that, if I would actually move that we approve this agreement as a 1-year agreement with the following changes, eliminating the final sentence in section 2, coordination with memorandum of understanding, changing the term to fiscal FY21, and under the cost section, eliminating the final sentence. And so that puts us on, record as supporting the program, supporting it for the FY21 year, and asking Andy to contact the other town administrators to see about addressing the points that have been brought up for draft something that can be voted on prior to November 30th.
Okay, so that sounded like a motion to me. Did you get all of that, Judy?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Tim, Andy, Chief?
Nothing else.
Okay. Okay, so Todd, I'll ask you to call the roll.
Selectman Cresta,
Yes.
Selectman Hooton,
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, so that is unanimous with Rick Cassiotis abstaining. So Andy, you can report back to the board after you communicate with the other two town administrators, and if need be, we'll take this up at the next meeting as an agenda item.
Will do. Thank
So
you.
I'll, if Rick is back, I'm not sure if he's back at all. Ah, there he is. Okay, Rick, I gladly handed the gavel back.
Thank you very much, Brian. Okay. With that, we can move on to item number 7, which is a review and vote on an application for transfer of license from Interstate Management Company, LLC, to Merit Boston North operator, Al, regarding operation and management of the DoubleTree Hotel at 51 Village Road. Do we have anyone present from the hotel?
We did.
I saw Jill earlier. There she is.
I see the full application. And
I do not, I don't represent the DoubleTree.
Oh,
Nope, that's right. Jill's going to be on for the auto dealership.
Yeah.
Item 8, not 7.
Exactly.
So Andy, were we expected to have the attorney that they usually use?
Yeah, the manager was, I saw him on earlier, so, far.
Why don't we,
Actually, he's on now.
K-Bar.
Okay.
K-Bar?
Yeah.
No, Jill, that's me for the all the dealers.
Yeah, K-Bar is actually for the Class 3 license.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my apologies.
so Andy, why don't we just keep this on the agenda and move to the next item in case somebody pops in for that. If not, I guess we're going to have to put this off for our next meeting.
There you go. I agree.
Hi, Kevin. Kevin is here from the DoubleTree. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, Kevin,
yes.
go ahead. You're on for agenda item number 7, and if you would please.
Yeah. So there was a change in management company from Interstate Hotels to Merit Hospitality. The transition happened back on April 1st. So I am the new general manager for the property, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Do you have any
I
questions?
think everybody knows what my question is going to be. So this happened April 1st.
Correct. The transition happened officially on April 1st. The property was closed due to COVID-19. We reopened on May 18th.
Okay. And Andy, when were we notified of this?
I don't recall offhand, Brian, but we the formal application came in a couple of weeks ago. We did reach out to them. We had heard about this fairly early on, and I forget if they
Yeah,
We heard about it from Kate.
Yeah, before she left, I think it was in March that she
Yeah.
said that she was leaving.
Correct.
Yeah, she basically sent us a thank you email informing us that she was going to be leaving her role.
That's right. So so we reached out to corporate through Kate and reminded them that they needed to make this change. I do think as a result of COVID that it maybe became less pressing for them while they were closed down. But it has been in the works for a while.
Yeah, so I appreciate and understand due to COVID-19 that the facility was closed for about a month period of time, but I'm going to officially say it. I am officially sick and tired of this. This is a facility that every time there's a change in the manager, we are always the last to hear. There's usually a new manager that has already been put into the position that is not on the license, that is, in many cases, if it's the common vic or the alcohol license. I appreciate the facility has been closed. I appreciate that this industry has been hit hard by COVID. This is not the first time or the second time or the third time.
Well, Brian, I plan to be here for a while. I plan to be part of the community. I was through our management.
Every manager has said the exact same thing, and they've lasted a short period of time.
So here's the reality. We have an option here. We can ask you, like we've asked every time, and everybody before you and everybody before them, when we have a license that is being operated with somebody that we don't even know who the general manager is, we don't even know who the licensee is because of the changes that happened. The last time your attorney was here, or the attorney of record, we asked them to actually be reasonable and reach out to us. This time, at least we got a farewell email from the general manager, and her email was more, quite honestly, of, I'm going to be leaving, you'll be hearing something soon. And obviously that happened prior to COVID-19 occurring. One of the things that when we went through this last time with the licensure change, we assured that this would happen immediately. And immediately is not 4 months. And quite honestly, I have half a mind to make a motion that we just move this to another date and see if you all can actually get your act together. And I'm struggling why we go through this every single time. I get that there's a revolving door there. We'll probably at some point approve this, and 6 months later, we'll be hearing through the grapevine that there's another change. So I appreciate you want to be a
Brian, and again, I don't want to, I don't want to waste your time, but we,
honestly,
again, we're a new management.
Please let the selectmen.
Yeah, this is please let the board speak, please. I gotta tell you, this is a constant waste of our time. If you went through and looked at the number of agenda items that we've done on this in the last 5 years, I've been on this board since 2010, and myself and Costa and Tim and other members of this board have consistently asked the license holder to actually be a good partner. We would not put up with this with any other license holder in the town. We have an attorney on the board here that represents many, on this meeting right now, that represents many, many license holders, that always has the class and the responsibility to reach out to us when a change happens. We get that the change happens. This has now gone on, and I am telling you, I said last time, this is the last time, and here we are again. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what else to say. I don't know how to get this facility to stand up and actually do what is right. I don't know what else to say.
Right. Looking at the documentation we have in the packet, I don't see, I mean, is that the minimum we're required to actually take action on this? Because all I see is a letter informing, and then only the application for transfer. Is there any subsequent documentation that we would generally see with this?
Yeah, so
documenting Corey and such.
Yeah, so there was a full application package. We don't share all of that because there is some personal information, some financial information that we prefer to not share.
Okay.
There has been a background check. We do have identification and the information that we need from the applicant in order to act on the application.
And again, I may be redundant. It was received as best you can, the date by which it was received.
July 9th.
Okay, so it's the date we're looking at. So,
yeah.
I'd like to. Can I ask a
I'm sorry,
question?
Costa, go ahead.
You know, if the facility reopened on 5/18, why is July 9th the letter of the transfer? Why not May 19th? Why not May 1st?
All good questions.
Kevin, can you answer that, address that at all?
Yeah, so I officially joined the property on June 11th. I know that we've been working, with Blue Bonnet out of Dallas. I can't speak to what happened before I got here. The only thing that I can tell you is that, that moving forward, I want to create a great relationship. It seems like you've had some challenges with this property in the past. And I want to do everything possible to change that perception. I started my hotel career 26 years ago with the Flatley Company. I know this property intimately, because of that, and I remember the grandeur of this property. And my goal is to turn it around. So again, I can't speak to what happened before. I can tell you, and I can give you the assurance that I want to do everything right and not waste your time moving forward.
So you may not know, but when we went through this last time, we finally had to get a letter from your corporate office and through your attorney informing us that this would never happen again. And the letter assured us that they had processes that had been put in place, that there was a corporate officer that would actually intervene and ensure that as the license holder, you would notify us in an extremely fast, timely manner. So again, I appreciate that COVID-19 happened, but you knew about this before COVID-19 ever became an issue. I'd ask you to deal with your corporate office and deal with your attorney that actually committed to us. The first letter we got was kind of pathetic, to be honest with you. The final letter that we got and confirmed that we would actually have a corporate officer that would be in charge of informing us when this happened. So please go back, and I would actually ask that we are going to have, and I'd prefer at our next meeting, that corporate officer be a part of this meeting to inform us that it's not just a memo that was signed, that there are processes in place. So when you are gone, which is going to happen because it happens multiple times in a year within this facility, that we're notified of this. If not, I'm telling you next time, I will not vote at all to approve the license transfer, and you're going to have a facility without food or beverage license. And then you can go to the ABCC and deal with it then. And I will tell you, the money you're going to spend to deal with that is not going to be worth the time and the headache. So I'd ask Mr. Chairman that on our next agenda that corporate individuals, somebody that has corporate responsibility from the parent company, be invited and participate.
So
and again, Kevin, if you want to be a good partner in the community, I recommend that they come before us.
Right. Mr. Cassiano.
Yeah, let the record show Selectman Cresta's desire to have that in the minutes, and if we can have someone of that capacity represent at our next meeting or at that time in which they're able to do so, I guess.
So,
my question
Brian,
is there anything in the way of sanctions? I'm sorry, go ahead, Costa.
Are you referring to the management company or the actual property owner?
Oh, I would
Do you
say
want something from Marriott Hospitality or from?
So it was my understanding that it was the management company that would be the entity that is designated, and there was and I don't have the document in front of us, but we finally got a letter that their attorney provided to us that there was a corporate individual that was in charge, and they promised that they had a process in place to notify us in a timely manner.
Yep.
Brian, it's Kevin. Just so that I better understand, what was the time frame on that? Was that through Merit or was that through Interstate?
Again, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, that was interstate. Since, you know, Merit Hospitality just took over it couldn't have been with them. It was with the previous property, you know, manager, or the property, you know, management and interstate. So I think we need both the Merit Hospitality and the property owner, because, you know, the management changes. The property owner, has, you know, probably goes on longer. But so I think it would be in the best interest of both Merit Hospitality and the property owner if they provide us on this call, and it's easy since it's a Zoom call, to be present at our next meeting. That last time, you know, we threatened to bring somebody in, you know, interstate, I think was based in Colorado. You know, Kevin, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I know you're new to this, but it can't not happen. This industry must have a better way of handling this situation than what we have been afforded in the past. So get somebody from Merit, get somebody from the property owner, and then maybe we'll approve the transfer of license.
Understood. I understand your frustration. Yes, I mean, we will have somebody from Merit on, and I can certainly have ownership join as well. And, you know, I on behalf of my industry, I apologize that you've had to go through this.
Mr. Chairman, I
Don't
move
mind. Can I make a statement?
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead, Brian.
So, Kevin, sorry that you're the lamb before the lions, but if you actually saw Mr. Cresta last time, you would see that he's under control this time and not as wild as he was last time. And the problem is they do the same thing. They send you as the token out there to get slotted from us. You take it, and we're kind of a nice guys, and we tell you what to do. And then they say the same thing. I think it was a point you're going to make. Oh, we're a new management group. We're not responsible for the old guys. Well, unfortunately, you are. And you're going to be responsible for the next guys. And what happens is they decide to send you to Colorado. And then 3 months later, they decide, oh, by the way, we don't have a manager in Middleton. So I don't know how the message is going to get through, because next time there'll be a new management company. There'll be a new manager. And I'm sorry that we've already got you fired and you haven't even started. But that's what happens.
I see your frustration. I understand. You know, like I said, you know, I plan on being here for a while, but I understand. You know, I will get our owners, and I will get someone from corporate Merit, you know, to join on the next call.
One of the, just so you know, and not to dissuade that, one of the past managers lived in Danvers, and he kept saying, "I'm home. I'm living here." Yeah, he lasted about 3 months.
So, Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
sorry. I'm sorry that you've all gone through this, but yeah, I understand your frustration, like I said, and again, I apologize on behalf of our industry, but you know, we will definitely make it right for this property.
I appreciate that. The reality is we would never put up with this with any other license holder within the town. It would never happen. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we postpone any action on this until the next meeting when corporate officials from both our corporate entities appear before us.
Okay. A second. All right. If all right, then I'll go to the clerk and ask Mr. Bresky for a roll call vote on that.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
Myself, yes.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. Again, Kevin, you know, like I said, you're fronting the operation right now, and you know, at least you have the information you need to return to your handlers. And if I could add too, it's more than an administrative thing that anyone's getting annoyed that we have to go an extra step. Being in law enforcement in this town, I must say, not just your address, but anyone that handles alcohol, they're not without their incidents and issues that that we see. And I hope you see the true concern that the town of Middleton has, and especially this board, when in regards to the frequent the frequent lack of notification from that address on liquor license management changes. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Right. So then, gentlemen, am I to think that we can, do we need a vote now on number 8 in the fact that it's on there? With that motion carries, can we move on to 9?
Yes, move on to 9.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patakis. Okay, number 9 will be review and vote on a common victualler application for the Grove Boutique.
No.
No, that was number 7. We have to move on to number 8.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Number 8, a review and vote on the application of LD's Automotive Inc., Eldar Bar or Manager of Record, for a Class 3 used car dealer's license located at 295 North Main Street. Ms. Mann, if you would.
Good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of LD's Automotive Inc. Eldar Barrow is on as well. I don't think we can see him, but you will be able to hear him. So this particular license was originally held by Muzzy Chuck's Garage, and it was transferred to Angel Cuervas, or Express Auto. And Express Auto desires to transfer to LD to be able to operate this facility at that location at 295. It's basically the same terms as Express Auto. They are leasing the office and they are leasing the rear lot. LD actually owns has another license with regard to used automotives up in Lawrence. And this is just an extension and expansion of this current business he's bringing to Middleton. I did include in your package just the general application off the Middleton website, a copy of the lease, a copy of the owner authorization from Express Auto allowing for this application to happen, and a copy of the license, which continues to be valid and in good standing in the city of Lawrence. I don't know if the board has any questions for us, or if you'd like to ask LD any questions. We would love to be able to respond.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Mann.
Thank you.
LD, if you would, I'd like to have you take a moment and introduce yourself to us here today.
So my name is LD. I have a tow company in Lynn and a car dealership in Lawrence. I've been looking for a spot for the past 18 months for a Class 3 dealership. And in the past few months, that spot was about to be available. So and basically, I have 19 people in Lynn working. And I am expecting maybe about 6 or 7 in Middleton, maybe by the end of the year, if everything works out well. And this is just part of the process, I guess. But I've been doing it for quite some time, and this is just kind of like an extension for my current, working business.
Right. And where in Lynn were you located, you said?
On Western Avenue. It's a tow company. It's called Mass Towing. And you guys can Google it. It's going to pop up. I've been there for 8 years. In Lynn, we tow a lot of vehicles. We repair a lot of cars. And this is just like basically like a second location for me.
Okay. Would you be doing towing out of Middleton?
No. Just anything auto parts related, and basically no towing. All my tow trucks and everything on my fleet and maintenance is in Lynn, not in Middleton.
So, and how much different from the existing business from Eldar is? From the existing business. So, were you looking at the same kind of thing? What are you looking to change, if any?
No, I'm not looking to change anything. I've been doing the same thing, just in a smaller. I was kind of like maxed out in my current location, and I couldn't fit any more cars. I was just maxed out. I've been. It's kind of like it's a big property, which I kept taking more and more space, but I kind of ran out, so I had to get some more space. So this is a good, a good spot, not too far away. And I mean that's about it. There's just going to be cars over there, parts, and some dismantling, obviously, in the back.
Can you remind me with the current license, how many vehicles are allowed there?
It isn't actually cars like a sales place, so there isn't any
No,
retail.
I get that it's
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm just wondering if there's a limit on the amount that can be on that site.
No. No, it's just how you stack them because they're inoperable. It's for parts and stuff. So the current license doesn't have any limit like that.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Or so we are basically looking at the same operation that we've got there.
It is. It is.
With a different one. Okay, I don't have any other discussion. No, then I'll take a motion on the vote to approve the transfer of license.
I'd make that motion to transfer the application of Ellie's Automotive for a Class 3 used car dealer's license located at 295 North Main Street.
Okay, thank you. Would I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If I could, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Pentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
All right, LD, congratulations. Welcome to town. This motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. LD, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.
Good luck. Okay, now moving with that on to number 9. Now we can do it. And it's a review and a vote on common victualler application for the Grove Boutique and Cafe at 210A South Main Street in Middleton. Who do we have representing?
Hi.
Hello, could you state your name, please?
Sorry, this is my first Zoom call, so I'm proud of myself that I'm actually on this.
Very good.
I'm Susan Harsh. I'm the owner.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the what you're looking for us and what you're doing down there and what you're asking?
Yeah. So I
Go ahead.
first opened in Manchester by the Sea in 2012. And then I was in the Market Street for 5 years. And I closed both those locations and found the space in Middleton. I used to teach at Masco, so I love that area and I'm very familiar with Middleton. The Grove is a combination of boutique and cafe. The boutique has mainly women's clothes, some items for men, gifts. I try to find really unique items made in the US. The cafe is about 20% of the business where people, it's a strong community vibe where I do book club and we do fundraisers for the community and serve coffee and acai bowls, smaller, like little snacks, but nothing crazy. Yeah, and so there was very little, we just had to put a wall up, but other than that, because it used to be the butcher shop, the sink was there and
yeah.
I think I had a couple outlets put in, but other than that, nothing major done to the space, but that's the Grove.
Okay. You're using the whole space that was the butcher shop, or is it expanded?
I'm using the whole space. We put a wall up so that the kitchen in the back is kind of hidden so that I could have the cafe because it's a big space. So we put a wall back behind where you used to have a cooler to separate that, and it worked out well.
Nice. So looking at the front, you'd be coming into the cafe then, and then the boutique and the other items would be sort of to the back. Is that what you're saying?
So no, when you come in, you actually are hit with a couple displays of the boutique. And then I had a coffee bar put along the left side. So, and then in the coffee bar's on the left, and then in that back corner, right that abuts like the wall that we built, is a couch and a table for the bulk of the cafe.
Nice. Any other questions from the board at all, Mr.
If
Cross?
I could, so Susan, yeah, actually, I've heard about your landlord was telling me about the effort you were looking to open up. So, welcome to the effort here. And
Thank you. I'm sorry, my phone, for some reason, I'm having trouble hearing you, so I'm putting the phone up to my ear.
Yeah,
So
well, I'm not gonna yell like I did to the previous attendant. I've gotten that out of me, so I'm happy now. First off, welcome to Middleton. Secondly, you may not know, but as you've probably seen both in that plaza and elsewhere, the town has implemented a process to allow for outdoor dining for businesses that want to undertake that. I don't know if you are giving any thought to your cafe side to have any outdoor seating, and if so, I'd welcome you to take a look at the guidance that the town administrator and his office has put together, and if you're going to consider doing that, consider filling out that application as well.
I will. I'm definitely considering it. Looking ahead to the hot weather, I was going to give it a couple weeks. I'm opening, hopefully opening tomorrow. Just wanted to give it a couple weeks, but then I'll definitely pursue that.
Yeah, so what I'd ask is during the summer months, we don't meet as regularly as we usually do, but this is a process that does not have to be approved by the board. It's through the town administrator and a group of folks there. And I know from when that place used to be a pizza place, I know there's space off to the left that would probably allow for that. So just contact either Tanya or Andy in the town administrator's office, and they can get that info. And I actually think, Andy, that information's on the website as well.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Susan, on your application, you put the hours for Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Are those the similar hours as when you had locations in the other communities?
It is similar to Manchester. In Linfield, due to the lease, I was open 7 days, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
So one of the things, Susan, especially for the part of your license that would be the common vic license, if you put those hours, those are the hours that you're tied to. If you wanted to expand to another day or different hours, you'd have to come before the board for that. So I always caution, we've had folks that have come in here for full common vic and alcohol license asking for, midnight, 1 a.m. They roll the sidewalks up at 9 p.m. here. But sometimes we always kind of caution you may want to ask for additional hours, knowing that you may not be open those hours.
Okay. I found that mainly because I mainly work, I have very little staff. I usually just have 1 or 2 people on. And so the Sundays and Mondays off. Mondays were just days to get all my doctor's appointments done, or there always tend to be quiet days anyway in retail. But thank you. Okay. So if I do want to expand,
and as the common vic license here would be based on, the common victular license will be based on the hours that you portray in the license. And, should you want to open up for a longer period or another day, I just don't want you to have to come back before the board for that.
Okay. So right now I was planning on doing, I think when I filled the license out, I switched it from instead of 10 to 5 because I've been down there a lot and noticing when the traffic is and such. So I just switched it to 9 to 4. Is that okay?
That's your call.
Yeah.
All right.
It says, you have asterisk with some evening hours. That, that would be outside, without specifically stating what those were. Those would be outside of the license that we would issue.
Right.
And other,
Those evening hours, I was trying to be creative with the virus, and just how things are so different now. And some of my longtime customers have said, would you have like a private shopping party available for people if they wanted to do that? So that's why I said possibly some evening hours.
So let me be a little bit more specific. If you were to ask for 9 to 7 and you're only open 9 to 5, there's no problem. If you ask 9 to 5 and you want to stay open till 7, you won't be allowed to.
Gotcha.
So what Brian was trying to say is, If you think you're going to use more hours, ask for it now, then you don't have to come back.
Okay, I'll ask for it. All right, can we do 9 to 7? Sorry,
Yep.
sorry.
Yep. Nope.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. It does not mean you have to be open at 9 or close at 7.
Okay,
And which days of the week are you asking for?
Tuesday through Saturday.
Okay, so again, to Tim's point, if you decided you wanted to be open on a Sunday or a Monday, your license would not allow you to have your common victular license would not allow you to serve during those days.
I'm so sorry. I'm getting like half of what everyone's saying.
Yeah, sorry. What I was saying is, yeah, if you wanted to open on a Sunday or a Monday, your license would not allow you because of the dates that you've picked.
Gotcha. Okay, so what you're saying is it's best right now for me to ask you if I could be open Sunday through Saturday.
Yeah.
We'll say 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Like I tell my kids, ask for everything and then see what happens.
Right. No, that'd
I
be
should
right.
know that. I taught high school for 10 years. I should remember that stuff. Okay, so then we'll say Sunday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
I would make that motion.
And I would second that motion.
Second. And Andy, would we need her to submit us, do we make the change on the existing application, or will we ask her to
We'll make the change in the
You
license
will.
that we issue.
Okay. Very good. So we have a motion and a second. Amending the time as we're looking at it from Sunday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Great.
And
As
who wa-
stated, welcome to Middleton, Susan.
Who was the second on that?
That was me, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, good. All the best luck down there, okay?
Thank
Good luck,
you.
Susan.
Welcome. Okay, now on to item number 10, which will be to vote to renew 2 seasonal all alcohol restaurant licenses, 2 common victualler licenses, and 2 entertainment licenses for Estuary Management Group LLC at the Members Lounge and Halfway House Snack Bar at 8 and 10 Village Road. Ronald Rice, manager. Who do we have this evening with us to represent for?
Rick, I have that at 14.
Yeah, that's number 14. You moved quick,
We're
Rick.
we're on to Lake Street traffic.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Here we go.
Rick wants
We're on to Lake Street traffic. Couldn't wait to get there. Okay,
Cincinnati.
then let me stand corrected and move to number 11. Okay, and we're going to discuss and vote on amendment to traffic rules relative to the
It's number
installation.
10.
I was on 10, right?
No, that
No,
was
this
9.
is
we
10.
voted on.
10 would be Village Road, Snack Bar, Halfway House. Russ?
No,
You must be looking at an old agenda.
I am looking at an old agenda. My apologies. Let me look at the one that's in front of me now on the screen. And number 10 would be to discuss and vote on amendment to traffic rules relative to installation of temporary traffic control devices on Lake Street. Please forgive me. And I'm sure we have people to speak with evening. Do we have any, information from the board that we want to start with?
sure, I can give you a history of it.
Thank you, sir.
So, as people may or may not know, I do live on Lake Street. And what has happened is that since COVID came in, Lake Street was always a quiet little street. And since COVID came in and people, some people, I can't tell you these are facts, but say that because they started charging it, Harold Parker and everything, that people were looking for places to go. What ended up happening is that Lake Street, on an average, I would say, I would have 4 or 5 people on during a day. Now we have probably 100 to 200 people walking up and down the street. And what's happened is that also, you have older people, younger people, and there's, if you go down by where the gate is or where the dirt road starts, you're not gonna have 14, 15 cars. Well, people are fishing or doing whatever. So that's not the problem. The problem is that every so often you'll have 4 to 5, and I'm going to call them young people, in a small Honda with a big muffler, go down and meet at the end of the circle, and then decide to come back at about 45 or 50 miles an hour. I've been approached by 3 or 4 houses on the street who walk their kids and were concerned because of the high rate of speed. I talked to 3 of them today who could not be on the phone call. I see that one is on this call now. I happen to work in Lawrence, and I noticed that they were having the same problem, and they put in temporary. Again, temporary. I'm not talking about, I know that you mentioned speed bumps in this town, and you get quite a reaction. I was looking for a speed bump or 2 speed bumps on there to slow these kids down, just so they know that it's not a raceway. So basically, that's what I had, and I had the neighbors, and that's what I proposed. So it was more of a COVID, I would call it a COVID relief message. I'm not looking for it to be permanent. I'm not even looking for it to be part-time permanent. I'm looking for it to send a message for a little while kids drive up and down, that if they come over that hill, and because it's about 20 feet at the curve, and there's no viewing side. And I've heard people say, well, we'll just do enforcement. I mean, I think the chief will tell you, enforcement's not going to help, because these kids are coming at what? 7 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 2 a.m. Doesn't really matter. They're not consistent. You're not going to have an officer there. We're not going to waste an officer sitting there all day. It's not the sight lines. The sight lines, I think, if they have a better sight line, they might go a little faster. So it was just a proposal. Again, if it happens, it happens. I told the people on the street that I would present it. So I presented it. I am not on Facebook, but I heard there was a little whirlwind about it. So that's what I presented, and before I presented it, I did speak to both the fire chief and the police chief. They're not crazy about it, but again, that's, so that's my proposal. That's why it's before you. I think people got upset when they drew lines on the street and everybody thought it was a done deal, that somehow, I or someone else had the power to do things without this board's approval. But so that's where we are today. So that's why it's here. I'm sure there's many people who wish to speak.
Okay, thank you, Tim. All right, I know we'll have other input here, but I guess without further delay, if we could have, is there any citizen input?
Yes.
Okay, with us? All right, if you would identify yourself, please, and let us know.
Yeah, good evening, Rick. This is John Stanfield, neighbor of Tim's. I would actually recommend making this, if you want to put, I understand the cost of redoing berms and things like that, because we are a very narrow street, and putting up asphalt type speed bumps, whatever, might be problematic with all the snow plows, because when we get heavy snow, this road turns into a one lane street. But on the other hand, like Tim mentioned, there's a lot of kids, very small kids to be exact, that, basically the sidewalk. We've got 5-year-olds riding their bikes up and down the street with their parents. And like Tim said, they come screaming down the hill with the trucks, with the cars. And I think Tim was alluding to the fact that one of my vehicles several years ago was basically totaled right in front of my house because of some kid in a little street car flying down a hill at night and creamed my car. And then on June 23rd of this year, kids on bicycles hit my fiance's daughter's car and did $1,200 worth of damage. If those speed bumps were there, I think they'd be paying a little more attention, even though the kid was on a bicycle. Hey, it's still a reminder that there's challenges coming ahead, and so they won't be, looking on their phones and writing without hands and stuff like that. So I totally back what Tim's saying. I would like to see it, a reoccurring. I understand that there may be some challenges or some dislikes about having speed bumps, but there are speed bumps and other S curves up on Lake Street between Lakeview and 114. Doesn't impact those folks that much. And I'd hope that you would like to do this on a more recurring year-by-year basis.
Okay, Thank you, sir. Is there any other citizen input?
Yes, my name is Kenneth LaPulse. I live at 81 Lake Street. Excuse me, I've lived here, my family and I have lived here for 50 years. We're one of 3 residents that have been here more than 50 years. And I guess I have a question for Mr. Hooton. Why weren't we notified that there was a possibility that they were going to be putting speed bumps in? You know, it seems so these newcomers that come to Middleton, you know, and they don't like the traffic on Lake Street. Well, if they don't like it, they shouldn't have come here. And I agree with Tim, this has all transpired since COVID. Lake Street was a real quiet street. There was never a problem. Like I said, I've lived here 50 years and there's never been a problem. The only thing I don't agree with Tim and Andy is you two took it upon yourself to decide to put these speed bumps in. They've already been purchased. And to listen to Tim, you're saying that they're thinking about it. Well, there's no thinking to be done. It's already, they've been purchased. And I think, Tim, I think you should have come and talked to the residents that have lived on Lake Street for more than 50 years. And I have talked to the people on Lake Street that have been here 50 years, and they knew nothing about the speed bumps. So, and I know the police department, the fire department, and the DPW are against putting in these speed bumps. And you can say they're only temporary, but you know something? When they're put in, they're there. And I know you're gonna take them out in the winter time so they don't affect the plowing. I understand that, but then they're going back in the spring. So there's no such thing as a temporary speed bump. So.
Well, Mr. Gilchrist, I can appreciate that. I would argue that, and I appreciate you being here for half a century. I've lived here for over a decade, and I think I've earned the stripes to be able to speak for what happens on the street as well.
Well, that's fine. But my biggest problem is we have never been notified of this. And I'd like to know how Andy and Tim can order the speed bumps to be purchased without having a public hearing. And that's just what happened. And if it wasn't for myself and my family putting this thing together, there would not be a hearing tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond.
I would like to add something if possible as well.
Rick, if I could respond to in terms of the process.
Sure, we'll get back to Sir Leo. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, so there is no hearing required. It's before the board tonight for review and approval. If they want to approve it, they can also deny it. So that's what this meeting tonight is about. It's to decide on whether it's a good idea, whether it makes sense. If the board says no, then they're not going in.
But this, excuse me, this was not scheduled for a hearing tonight. It was not scheduled until we made a stink about it.
Well, I would say it was probably not scheduled until it was scheduled, with all due respect, if I could.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Agree to disagree.
I guess we agree to disagree.
Okay.
If I just might want to say one thing. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't.
Neither am I.
So get a lot of that. To be honest with you, this was already scheduled by the time I had talked to Doug. So Doug gave a very eloquent argument of his opposition, but at that point, it wasn't because Doug had talked to me. When I spoke to Andy and said this was the request of people on the street, he said, well, we have to have a hearing. Again, people got upset because they drew lines on the ground, and I apologize for that, but I can't order them to do stuff. The board can order them to do stuff, but I'm just an individual member.
All right, but why were they purchased? Why were the speed bumps already purchased?
I have no idea if they were purchased.
I know for a fact they were.
Right.
I know for a fact they were.
It's not a secret.
Right.
May I have an opportunity?
Hold on. One at a time. Sorry. Go ahead, then. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Ben. I live down on 37 Lake Street. I think I'd like to put this in everybody's mind. It is a matter of perspective of where you are living on the street. Right past where the driveway is to the pump station, pretty much to the hill, that's where the sight lines become wider. People think, oh, it's opening up. Especially a lot of these new people that haven't been here before since the traffic on the street started to pick up. And that's when they start to really accelerate. And then once they find out, once they get to the top of the hill, it starts to narrow down again. Perhaps why, Mr. Lacoste, your street or your end is not seeing as many high-speed travelers as someone who lives, directly right across the wider parts as these cars are, gaining momentum down the street. And, I've been here and my mother's been here now for 30 years. Unfortunately, that we've come more than once said, wow, these cars, they just fly up and down, Lake Street. And there are new people on the street. There are younger families, with little kids. And I can understand it's a concern. But I think it's a matter of perspective of where you're living on the street to see how fast that these cars are going and the potential hazards that it faces.
Rick, if I could weigh in on here. So I took a ride down there. I wasn't there long enough to see a lot of folks coming in and out. I can completely understand, given COVID, that a lot of folks, both residents in town and probably folks from outside of town, have discovered this area. I think a lot of folks had already found it, walking around the reservoir, fishing when they're not supposed to be fishing, four-wheelers and the others. I heard a comment about speed bumps on the other end of Lake Street. Just so there's some clarity here, that part of Lake Street is a private way, and we don't have, as a town, any authority to request or deny speed bumps. Now, I will tell you, we've had speed bumps on other roads in town. For example, over at another private way, the Fuller Pond, which the fire department at the time had some considerable concerns about the multitude of permanent speed bumps and the ability for fire and ambulance to respond in a timely manner. The bigger the vehicle, the complete stop they have to come to as they go over this. And those were removed per the board of directors over at the pond. I think what I'm a little bit trying to get my arms around here, and I can see the sightline issue, I can see the issue as it is about being narrow the further you get down. And to your point, Mr. Panunzio, about really perspective of who you are, I think many of the folks are at the beginning of Lake Street that may live there, they're not having to drive over the speed bumps every single time they, or I know they're not there, but won't have to drive over the speed bumps every single time they drive in or drive out. So I think the perspective is two ways, not just where you live, but also how you're affected by it. And I'd ask,
Can I make a comment as well as a resident of the
Hold on. If you would, please, hang on.
Please, Mike. And what I really want to get to is ask the chief if, and I know that we're not going to enforce our way out of this. I mean, because we have multiple of neighborhoods in this town where we have speeding and other items. We've seen it recently on PB Street and East Street. We've dealt with for a long period of time problems on River Street, how we could get speeding to slow down. Obviously, on some of these more highly traveled roads, we put in a sign that flashes at your speed that I think has had some effect. But Chief, I don't know if there's some more directive enforcement that could play a role here. And quite honestly, I think one of the best enforcements is when somebody is handed a piece of paper that they have to write a check to.
We have a brand new speed sign coming. We ordered, it should be here hopefully this month. Our other one is not working. Yeah, I mean, I can understand the frustration from the residents down there, but you have to realize something. I get calls every single day from every street in town, not just Lake Street, Liberty Street, River Street, and it's constant. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to put police officers on roads constantly, but as you said earlier, Tim, to put a police officer on Lake Street to see a car every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes is kind of, it's not really the best way to deal with the problem. And if we're down there, obviously they're not going to speed, and there's no place to hide down there. So hopefully when we get the new signboard in, we can put that out and about in town again. We do have some, sometimes it does work well, sometimes it doesn't. Some people like to see how fast they can get their speed up to with the sign, but yeah, it's a difficult street to work, and there's an awful lot of other streets in town that need attention also. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a fan of speed bumps. I never have been. But again, we have to try different things to try to make things work. So that's my.
Okay, thanks.
If I could please speak, my name
Sure.
is Tracy LaColst. I'm Kenny's daughter. I have a home on East Street, but I'm currently here with my parents on Lake Street. Now, there's a couple of things that don't quite make sense to me. First of all, I see the white lines on Lake Street and the placement of these potential speed bumps. Now, where they're placing them makes zero sense. The people pick up speed on the straightaway, not on the narrow corner. And the speed bumps are potentially being placed at the top of the hill and then around at the bottom of the corner. Now, if you're going to place speed bumps on Lake Street, I would imagine that they would be more properly placed on the straightaway where people are picking up speed, not where they're slowing down. So I'm questioning who decided the placement for these.
I don't know who has an
Anybody?
I, as a person who lives on the straightaway, I would actually agree with
I'm
that.
sorry, could you identify yourself? Sorry, sir.
This is Ben, Mr. Panunzio again, Ben.
Thank you.
I would actually agree with that statement that I wouldn't be opposed to having them more on the straightaways either, because that is where people get more momentum. And
Exactly.
To the Chiefs' perspective, maybe I would just recommend, those signs, but maybe posting a permanent speed limit sign as well, because I think we all do forget what we learn in driver's ed, that residential is 25 miles an hour.
And to add to my conversation, that there aren't any speed limit signs. There are handicap signs on Lake Street for a handicap resident that hasn't lived there for almost 20 years, but there are no speed limit signs. So wouldn't we think it would be more appropriate to start with a speed limit sign versus speed bumps that are going to have to be removed and replaced every year? That's time and money.
So actually, Rick, if I could ask of Andy, so a couple of years ago, we adopted at town meeting, because the state government had changed the process to allow us to have an effect on changing speed limits on certain roads. And I can't remember when that was. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. And you're actually right, Tracy. Actually, when I drove down, now that I'm thinking about it, there isn't a speed limit sign there.
Nope.
And under the authority that the state has now given to us, we could actually, if I'm correct, Andy, we could move that speed limit all the way down to 20, if I'm correct.
Which would be appropriate. A 20 to 25 mile an hour speed limit would be appropriate for that area.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the legislation, Brian. It would either be 20 or 25.
Here's what I'm getting at. I think we're hearing that there's a slew of potential options here, and I get that COVID has driven this, so I don't want to belabor this and put this into some big study that lasts longer than COVID does, and I surely hope that COVID dies quickly. So we've got a complete streets process already in this town that I think we've kind of merged from what was the complete streets to move to kind of like a transportation light committee. What if we ask, and if I'm correct, I think the 2 chiefs are on that, the public works director. I'm not sure who else is on that, Andy. Am I missing
so
anybody?
It's the chiefs, it's Paul Goodwin, the superintendent of public works, and myself and Katrina O'Leary, the town planner.
Town planner. I'm not sure. I think the public health director is on that as well. I think it may be a worthwhile endeavor to actually take a look at this by that committee, to come up with maybe some recommendations that could come back to a speed limit, Maybe some, and DG, I'm not asking your guys to sit down at the end of the reservoir where one car will come by every 15 minutes, but some type of directed enforcement, the utilization when the digital sign comes, looking at if there are speed bumps, where would be the optimal placement, and then come up with some options. Because, I mean, I don't know, maybe that option is a speed bump, maybe that option is lowering the speed limit down to 20 miles an hour, maybe the option is, you know, a combination thereof. That may make sense, have the complete street committee.
But the problem is that nobody knows what the speed limit. A friend of mine that grew up down on this street moved back here recently, and she texted me and asked me what the speed limit was on this street because she had no idea. So the other thing you guys need to consider is if you put speed bumps in on Lake Street, which has minimal traffic, you're opening Pandora's box. And I as a taxpayer am not paying for speed bumps on every single residential street in town.
On that point, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think it does open up a Pandora's box, and that's why I think I'd rather look at with the committee.
So I'm sorry, but can I make a comment as a resident?
Hold on, gentlemen. All right. Let me order here. Let's order up. All right. Let Mr. Cresta finish his point. And I do see the tiles of other people. I'm going to call on you individual, those I haven't heard from yet, if that's okay. Go ahead, Rob.
I think he's done. I think you're calling the people.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to let Brian finish, and then I was going to call on people.
I just think having the committee come back and look at all of the options here, because I don't know what they are. But and to your point, Tracy, if there is no speed limit posted, 25 miles an hour is the number, as I understand it, the law enforcement officer, but I think it is. And I think what that change allowed us in the state to make changes to that minimum number if we wanted to.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. If I could, I want to get to some folks who have probably been patiently waiting. I see Mike. Mike, did you have anything you wanted to contribute, sir?
Hi there. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself.
And your name and last name too, and address, please.
My name is Mike Givens. My wife and I recently moved into 53 Lake Street. So we live in the house right before the curve. Right before we moved in about 7 months ago. We moved up from Philadelphia, so I didn't think I would get so much hatred for speed bumps here. We're pretty used to them, but no, I totally understand that there's different options available. I would just, definitely pressure the committee to look into those and make this a priority. Not to open up a Pandora's box, but my wife and I both work from home. We both sit here and look out our front window every day. And it's not only young kids, it's sometimes myself, right? Sometimes I need a reminder when I'm coming down Lake Street what the speed limit is. And it's a street that's easy to drive quickly on, right? So I just do think that there will be an accident if we don't do something about it. And I'm thankful that we're talking about it tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mike, very much. Nancy Jones, hello, and I wanted to give you an opportunity. I saw you there. If you had something input you wanted to give.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that you're really setting a real bad precedent by doing this, because we had this same issue a gazillion years ago when the lights went in the square and people were cutting through Washington Street and going up Central Street, and it's a school zone. And we were really concerned about, the speed that people were going at. And they ended up putting in islands to try to deter the speeders going through there. And that didn't work. It was really difficult for the buses. But the only ones that I'm aware of, and I agree with Brian, is the on Lake Street Extension, which is a private way. Right. And as far as Fuller Pond, it's really not even open to the public. But if we start putting in speed bumps here, I could see a lot of different areas. I would love to see it happen. And it would be, I just think you're setting a really bad precedent by doing this down in Lake. I think it's a temporary concern. I think that, eventually it's all going to die down. People will be going back, hopefully, to a normal life and, leaving the people of Lake Street, a little bit alone. But I think that there's other methods to begin with, with signage or whatever, rather than jumping right into the speed bump issue, because I think that's really opening up a Pandora's box. But thank you.
Thank you.
Rick, if I may.
Yes.
Rick, this is John Stanfield again. Most of the other streets that you guys have been mentioning have sidewalks. There are no sidewalks on Lake Street. And the biggest challenge is not the straightaways. It's that hill that Mike lives on the bottom of, and I live right next to Mike, next to Tim, and the S-curve. Because there has been numerous crashes there. My car's been hit twice. Oh, two different vehicles have been hit. One by another car and totaled. And there was another kid, Tim, I don't remember, it was a few years ago, up by the rocks, up by Brent's house. Some kid totaled his car up there. I mean, it's a very dangerous spot, and we have no sidewalks.
And it's a beautiful place, and it's, you know, part of the reason my wife and I moved here is so we could walk around, and we want the community to be able to walk around there and enjoy it as well and be safe.
Yeah, and this was not just to COVID. This has been going on for years. I want to make that perfectly clear.
All right. I see an awful lot of people. I don't want to exclude anyone. I know a lot of people have spoken a few times. Is there anyone who's been sitting patiently that wishes to? It's just too many names for me to call, and I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't want to talk. So,
I'd like
is there
to
something else?
speak.
Go ahead, Doug. Yes.
Doug McColes, 2 Winterberg Road, resident of Middleton and longtime member of Middleton Fire. I am opposed to these speed bumps, and I'm not going to rehash what's already been said, but a couple of different points. The 3 department heads that I know of, police, fire, and DPW, are against the speed bumps. And myself, being the second in command of the fire department, I'm against the speed bumps. Like I said, it's going to slow our response time to emergencies. And like Nancy had said, it's going to open Pandora's box. As far as solutions, you know, we talked about the signs, we talked about maybe police enforcement, and what about trimming the hedges? I know I drove by there today, they were trimmed, the ones that the town of Danvers owns. I know as recent as yesterday, they were as tall as me, and the problem is you have blind spots going to and from because the hedges are so high. They are better, but they could be trimmed even more. I think that would be an important step to improve visibility so that people can see what's coming at them potentially. And regarding the police, I did obtain some information from the Freedom of Information Act from the Middleton Police for a 1-year period for July 2019 to July 2020 involving incidents from number 4 to number 99 Lake Street. That involved traffic crashes, motor vehicle speed complaints, including citations issued, citizens assist, and selective enforcement. And lo and behold, the number was 0. So we're so concerned about this, and I get it. You know, people speed everywhere in town, but there were 0 calls to the police. So I think we need to start small before we think big and drastic. Try those steps, see if they work, and if they don't, then come back to the drawing board and see what happens.
All right. Thanks, Doug. I did ask for those hedges to be trimmed. Sorry. He cut himself off. Thanks, Doug. I did ask for those hedges to be trimmed. Thanks for the information, and I'll make sure that get DPW to take a look at those again. Thank you for your input. Anybody else that hasn't spoken yet?
Rick?
Yes, Costa.
Yeah, I think, you know, from what we've heard, you know, that there's been, you know, many references to many, you know, different concerns and, you know, and over time. So I think, you know, what Brian was alluding to, asking that, you know, traffic committee to look at it and suggest both short-term and long-term, you know, solutions, you know, to that street, I think is appropriate. And then, and hopefully that can be done in a short period of time so that whatever solutions are recommended, you know, we can, you know, make decisions on and start implementing on an expeditious timeline.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I think there's more to this than just the simple installation of speed bumps, whether they be temporary or permanent. I'm in agreement as that as well, that we need to take a bigger look at the entire neighborhood, honestly. encompassing more than just, whatever addresses are, feeling the need for this. So can we move now? What's the motion in order to get us to get that discussed?
I don't know if we actually have to make a motion. I think we can just ask
Okay.
Andy to kind of convene again,
Okay.
I can't remember what the committee's called now that it's not a complete street effort, but.
Right, so it's the
Yes,
Transportation Task Force.
Right.
And so the Transportation Task Force will take a look at this. Again, that's the chiefs, the public works director, the town planner, and either me or Tanya from my office. And so we'll look at the whatever data is available, and look at some options and see what the best approach is.
So
Great. Yeah, right.
When I was on the Board of Selectmen in Wakefield, we had a committee that was called the Traffic Committee that was made up of almost all of those same individuals, because we were constantly getting, it was a much bigger town,
Yeah.
30,000 people. We were constantly getting requests for stop signs, speed limit changes, all kinds of enforcement items. And the committee really came back to the board and made some recommendations. And I'm not this guy in the room, but I would rather hear from, the public works director, police, fire chief, town planner and others to figure out how to solve this problem. And I think this is a good approach to take in the future. I mean, I think we struggled with River Street, for example, where we tried to come up with some solutions there, but I think we need to kind of figure this out elsewhere. I don't live by Facebook, but I know there's a lot of folks who've been complaining about speeding that's happened in other roads. And Chief, you don't have enough guys and gals to actually enforce it all, but there's got to be ways that we can try to come up with some better plans to address some of these.
If I could, I just want to say one more thing. My battery's going to die on my iPad here. So I just had a college intern come in and completed a full survey of all the speed limit signs in Middleton, every street, documented where they are, where they're not. So I forwarded that to the DPW superintendent, and we will bring that up at the meeting, and we can address some of those issues now of where they are and where they're not. So that was just completed within the past 2 weeks.
Thanks, Chief. It sounds like a revenue enhancement project, but thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and if I could, I want the task force to consider a larger problem that I see in that whole area, and that's the overall traffic in general, and that's the access to our very, our water supply down there. I'm sorry, excuse me. And maybe my thoughts have been for a long time that while I like people to take walks in the woods, it's a terrible feeling knowing that all those vehicles parked down there and you're hoping that they're doing the right thing inside there. And so I will also maybe ask them to think about prohibiting parking down there in the form of signage in that end area, as well as in the dirt area that connects to the other end of Lake Street. And then perhaps moving no parking, if we have the room for it, on Lake Street as a whole, except for the residents there. Maybe that in itself also would, whether it's COVID, an uptick in that, or just a place for kids to drive, if they got nowhere to park and hang around down there, maybe the neighborhood could get behind that too. And it would go a long way, I think, in doing what we can to protect our precious water supply in there. All right.
I think you're going to have a lot of dog owners that are going to be mad at you.
What's that?
You're going to have a lot of dog owners that are going to be mad at you if you ban them.
Yeah, I
would be careful about no parking down near where everybody parks now, because that'll just drive people to park on the road further up, and that'll exacerbate this problem. It's kind of the same problem we dealt with the Maggie's Farm and folks parking up and down the road there when you prohibit people move to where you can.
I know, but
those are items that the task force can all deal with. And I just say, Andy, if this could, I'm not asking it to be done overnight, but try to expedite it, because
Sure.
I'm hearing clearly from some of the neighbors that there's issues they want to see resolved on the underlying issue which brought this, which isn't just the concern over speed bumps, but it's really the concern over speeding.
Right, traffic in general. That's my point.
We'll get on this quickly.
Okay. All right, then, well, we do have it on the agenda here, so I'm going to, we've had discussion, then I'm going to ask for a motion on, for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we refer this to the Traffic Task Force Committee.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, then if I could, Mr. Moreski, could you call a roll call vote for that?
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
All right, so passes unanimously. So basically, there'll be no action taken on this until we get, no action of any kind taken until we get some input back from the task force. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your input and your patience. All right, I'd like to move on to the next item, which is a review and vote on proposed amendments to various fees and charges.
So, Mr. Chairman, we do this on occasion. Every few years, we go through and we look at our fees to make sure that our fees are satisfactory to offset the cost of services that we provide. Last time we did it was in 2016, early in 2016, right around the time that we were preparing the budget for the leading up to the town meeting in May of 2016. So it's been 4 years. We had started this back in I think in January, and then we kind of get sidetracked with COVID and get back on track. So the memo that's in the packet lays out all of the fee changes. There are a number of fees that we're not touching at all. You probably noticed that there were no changes to selectmen license fees. Our common vic fees and liquor fees, we're not proposing any changes there at this time. There are plenty of fees that are not being touched. A number of fees we are proposing to increase in order to cover our costs. There is one fee from the assessor's office that is recommended to be reduced from $15 to $10. But and really, again, it's to cover cost of service. There's a number of fees for that are new that we never charged in the past. We don't have, for instance, a comprehensive permit fee. Comprehensive permit is the Affordable Housing Act under Chapter 40B. If somebody was to file for a comprehensive permit now, there would be no fee to cover that, and so that's one example, and most of them are just adjustments. So if they all go into effect and we have the same level of activity, and that's always a question and an uncertainty, we would expect to bring in about $71,000 in additional revenue. We know that things are not going to be the same this year, certainly, as they were last year or the year before. But at some point, hopefully things will return back to something like normal. So we put a lot of thought into this. This was really generated by the departments to reflect their costs and what they're seeing as the cost centers that they need to cover. So happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Andy, on the municipal lien certificates, from $25 to $50 is $50 what most communities charge?
Yes, so that's a good example of one where we're quite low compared to our peer communities. Most of the communities in the area are at $50 now.
Okay.
Very good. Any other discussion for that? Sorry. Nope. All right, then I'll take a motion on.
I'd make a motion that we increase the fees according to the list.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Moreski, could you please call the roll?
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Sheehan. Okay, on the next agenda is going to be a review and revote on proposed changes to ambulance charges recommended by Chief Markna.
And I know the chief had had another commitment tonight, so I don't know if he's able to join us.
Okay.
But again, we look at our ambulance charges from time to time. The last time this was done, Chief Twist was the chief. That was in 2016 too. Also around the same time that we did the other fees. My memory is that when we did them at that time, there was a much steeper increase. I think we had been quite a while between adjusting our ambulance charges.
So, yeah, we adjusted these, if you remember, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. I asked actually for a postponement so I could actually scrub them against what is a regular Medicaid rate. Can I ask what these are based on? Is these recommendations coming from our billing entity?
Yes, so this is the average of the top 50 the top 50 ambulance services.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think some of them were, because usually Medicaid is the basement for reimbursement rates. And this actually might have been, now that I think about it, might be about 3 or 4 years ago we did this. Andy, it actually might have been before you were town administrator. And some of the rates, I think we are substantially below on. And I completely understand that there's a growing phenomena of ambulance reimbursement being almost fully funded by individuals through deductibles, and folks are being hit with, for lack of a better term, a surprise bill, although their insurance is pretty clear on it. But you know, you've heard me say this before. I am abundantly concerned that the revenue that we are bringing in that is going into our ambulance fund is not going to be able to keep up with the costs associated. Add to that when we have entities like the Essex County Jail that is not paying what we are owed due to individuals that are at their jail for a short period of time, and they're unable to determine that they were a member of the jail community, which I think is kind of strange, because when Doug or any member of the fire department arrive in an ambulance and they're taking somebody from the jail, I pretty much can guarantee they were a member of the jail population, even if it was only for a short period of time. I'm concerned that we are kind of in a downward spiral on the revenue and the cost that it takes to operate this. And what I'd rather like to see, rather than just some rate recommendations from the billing entity, to see if we may want to actually engage a consultant that is engaged in this to make some really real and obvious recommendations on this. The reality is many of these bills are being paid by private insurers, Medicare and or Medicaid. I don't want to see the burden switch to the ultimate user of the service, which is ultimately our taxpayers and our residents. But I actually don't want to see us leaving revenue off the table that should be there. So,
okay.
Sense on that.
Alrighty.
So, Andy, I don't know who that consultant is. I can, work with you and the chief on this to identify. I mean, I know folks just with the business that I'm in, but I don't want to make a change just for the sake of making a change, and understand if we are at the right level. Because I think some of our areas, quite honestly, are for certain services that the ambulance is providing are way underrated.
So if we change the rates to what is in the packet, that doesn't preclude us from your suggestion of hiring a consultant. And if those fees need to be even higher, we can do that at a subsequent time.
No, we can do that as well. I honestly, I don't, this is going to come out wrong. I just don't want to trust the billing entity as the one to make the recommendation on rates. I think, there are firms out there, and it may be worth to make the investment to understand, because again, our revenue basis continues to drop off, and I think it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with doing that, but your suggestion and raising the rates now to this level, to me, aren't inconsistent. It just means that if the consultant, says that, what we're changing, to 2,350 should be 2,800, we can just raise it after we work with the consultant again.
I just don't want this to be, we'll revisit this in a year or two when we revisit our rates again. I think.
No, we should do that, in the
it
near
should be
term.
annual.
Right.
This should be at a minimum annual.
Yeah. Right. So, sort of unrelated to the, or completely unrelated to this, but certainly can be wrapped into this. I'll be looking for the board to establish some goals for us for the coming year, and so this would be one area where that could, the ambulance fees could be a component of that goals document. That way, there's certainly a heat under my seat to make sure that I do it, and there's opportunity for the board to look at that a year from now and say, okay, how did we do? So if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, and roll into that the issue that we've been talking about on collection with a third-party collector. And this board still, or the town still has the ability to waive any of those collections should they become too burdensome. Again, I don't want to see a resident of this town be hit hard when their taxes are already funding a portion of this. But when there are folks that are not residents of this town that are not paying what is owed on our ambulance services, which is really the deductible, and they're not making those payments, and we're just not able to collect, and we're writing those off. I mean, we don't let our taxpayers get away with that on property tax or auto excise tax. So if you could put into that, Andy, the use of whether it's an FH Can or another collection company that has history of doing that with ambulance fees.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll welcome that.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Okay. If there's no further discussion,
So I'll move
sorry,
that we
sorry,
adopt
yes.
the proposed changes to the ambulance fees.
And a second. I'm sorry, a second? I didn't get it.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Could the clerk call the roll, please?
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On the next item, we have discuss a date for special town meeting and vote to open the warrant. Mr. Sheehan.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask the board to, for just to let me chat about this for a little bit and provide any feedback. I'm not actually going to ask for the board to open the warrant tonight.
Okay.
Just as a little bit of background, in talking with the town clerk and the town moderator right after the adjournment of the annual town meeting, we started looking ahead to when we might have a special in order to do those other warrant articles that got taken off of the annual. The initial thought was that we would do it after the state primary election, which is September 1st. So we were looking, get a couple of weeks away from that so we can all catch our breath. So we had been looking at something like September 22nd. The more, as time has gone by, it's become clear that there is and Costa mentioned this earlier, it is becoming less and less likely that there will be a state budget in place by that time, or if it's in place by that time, it's probably just in place, and we won't really know the full implications of the state budget on our local budget. So as much as I'd like to do a town meeting in September, I think it's probably premature to pencil that in at this point. We're looking at two other time periods. One would be about 2 weeks after that, somewhere around October 6th. And to give you a sort of background on what's driving the dates, I mentioned the state primary on September 1. There's early voting, a week of early voting that precedes that. Then we've got the presidential election on November 3rd. There's 2 weeks of early voting that precedes that. Then you mix in religious holidays, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, things like that. It really starts to narrow down the available weeks that we've got. So looking at something like October 6th or something after the November presidential election, something around, say, the 15th, I think I had 17th, something like that. And hopefully by that time we'll have more clarity on the state budget and a better sense of what kind of assistance we might be getting from the feds as they start to debate the most current coronavirus relief package. So, so that's a long way of saying, don't take any action tonight.
So for what it's worth, I actually spoke to Senator Tarr about reading the tea leaves of when we think we would have some clarity on local aid. There was hope that by this point, or if not by sometime later in August, there would be a revenue consensus that would occur. Well, due to the movement of tax filing to July 15th, that is kind of moved out the window. There is some effort that once there is a revenue consensus, that there may be a local aid consensus that will be agreed to in theory between House, Senate, and the governor, that would really be representative of what the governor's bill will be when he does file eventually his House 1 budget. It's not going to happen the beginning of October. We may have to look at, again, I don't know if I want to wait later until November, because we're far enough into the fiscal year that if we have to make some significant changes, they're not going to be able to be tweaks, that they may be changes that involve some painful cuts. But October is not going to work, so I think we should plan beginning of October. I think it's either late October or at the earliest, and I know you're not going to like this, Eileen, but at the earliest is right after the federal election in early November.
Brian, what do you mean late October? What are you thinking?
So I think there's going to be some, let's be honest, everybody that is, if it's going to be an ugly local aid number, it's going to come after November. If it's going to be fairly decent and not as bad as people are thinking, it's going to come before the election.
Early voting is October 17th through October 30th.
And I understand that.
We can't do a town meeting.
Yeah, so, but my point is that I think if we wait until late November, we are putting ourselves in jeopardy of, if our local aid numbers aren't pretty, and by then we'll have clarity what the elementary school and what Masco is expecting for the cost to have opening, whether it's hybrid or not. I just don't want to, Andy, be in a position of 5 to 6 months into a fiscal year of the cut, meaning bone and not muscle.
I have no problem once we get outside of the November election and we know that we're not having, we're not going to be audited because we are subject to the audit. And then, God forbid, a recount. So once we get past that, but we can't, it's just not feasible for our office to be able to do that. So we have to get beyond the November. We've done it before. We've had a November special.
Well, I understand that, but we've never had a November special that may be us making cuts to our budget.
I understand that, but we only have so much staff. So we'll have to discuss that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess what I'm trying to make the point here, Andy, is if we get further into the fiscal year, the cut's going to mean staff. That's what so much of our budget is personal services. It's going to be staff. Right. And that's, nobody wants that. Absolutely no one.
Yeah, and no question about that. And I mentioned before numerous times, having gone through something comparable in 2008, 2009, and at that time we found out, like in late January, what the impact was going to be. That did not leave us enough time, and I don't want to have a repeat of that this year. So, I think we'll continue to monitor. I think if there can be fairly quick action out of Congress, and I know that's an oxymoronic statement, and because there doesn't seem to be much consensus at the moment, but if they can find some common ground and the next package comes through and there is state and local aid relief, then that would give me some optimism that there's a positive light at the end of the tunnel. So, but again, no action needed tonight. We'll keep it on the agenda going forward, and have additional conversations and updates as we go forward.
If we look at November 17th, and then as the news develops as to what is likely to happen, can't we administratively reduce some spending and then actually reduce our budget on November 17th? But we can start reducing some of the spending administratively. We don't have to wait until we actually reduce the budget to do that.
Andy has the ability to implement a spending freeze if he thinks that there's going to be any issues. I mean, I think it would be helpful to have the board and the finance committee be on board with that, but I mean, those can happen.
Yeah, the only wrinkle that you run into, Costa, the only thing I can think of is that you've got an appropriation right now that is X, 38 million or whatever it is. If it's still there, but we don't have the revenue, we don't know that we have the revenue to cover it, it becomes more challenging to the tax rate in late November, December. Or we end up setting the tax rate higher for the third and fourth quarters than maybe we would need to if we were to have a town meeting earlier and actually reduce the appropriation. So that's the benefit. But there's still things we can do.
Yeah. But if we still target 1117 and reduce the budget, then it's still enough time to have a reduced a tax rate, because the tax rate's not going to be set for a couple of weeks after that. And
Correct.
It's also, even though it's 1117, if the consensus among the selectmen, the FinCom, yourself, based on the news, we can start, paring down spending leading up to that meeting.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right. All right. If there's no other further discussion, then we can move on to the next item, which will be to review and vote on seasonal license renewals. Andy, do you have the introduction on that? Or?
Yeah. So this is two seasonals, 2 common vics, and 2 entertainment licenses for SD Management Group at the Members Lounge and the Halfway House Snack Bar at Ferncroft Country Club. Ron Rice is the manager, still the manager.
Okay. Any discussion? Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
I move we approve.
Second. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll go to Mr. Moreski for a vote, please.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton. Tim,
you're up. You might be muted.
Sorry about that. I'm going to have to abstain because I have a conflict.
Okay. Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Yes, motion passes with Selectman Hooton abstaining. Our next will be to discuss and vote on the reopening of Thunderbridge Beach contingent upon satisfactory water quality testing. I don't know if we have Derek or Andy. Do you have input on that?
Yeah, so I can provide a little background on that. May 19th, the board at Derek and my recommendation voted to close Thunderbridge Beach. There was, at that time, May 19th, there was a heck of a lot of uncertainty about public gatherings in general, outdoor gatherings, and sort of recreational and beach uses and swimming uses and things like that. There's a lot more clarity to that now. And so it's an appropriate time to consider reopening the beach there. Derek is on board with it. They are ready to test. They may have already tested. I'm not sure if they've tested preemptively in order to be ready to reopen.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with reopening. I just don't want, it's basically been open while the gate's been closed. Folks have been parking on the road and utilizing the beach. If it becomes an issue that social distancing is not able to occur, it would likely lead us to closing again. The problem is we're only meeting monthly during the July and August months. So, I'm willing to make a motion, and I'll make it right here, that we reopen Thunder Bridge Beach. However, should social distancing become a problem, that we would also, part of my motion is that the chairman of the board have the ability to make a decision to reclose the beach to public access due to inability for social distancing.
Okay. I wanted to ask, where does this fall anywhere in the governor's phases of reopening? Is that?
Yeah, it does. So beaches are covered with outdoor recreation.
Right.
And so I can't tell you the specific requirements off the top of my head, but it is covered under one of the reopening orders.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was different than ocean beaches. That's why I asked. Okay.
No, I think the way that most of the towns that have beaches, both freshwater and saltwater, have been trying to regulate the social distancing is the limiting of certain amount of parking. Obviously, there's a small parking lot there. So, hopefully people will be smart, like they've been overall in this town, of social distancing and doing things to both protect themselves and their neighbor and the folks that they're with. So, but if this becomes an issue again, I just, again, like my motion, allow the chairman to make that decision in absence of a selectmen's meeting.
Very good. So noted. Okay, we have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Moreski, once again, please call the roll. Muted.
Sorry. Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
No.
And myself, yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, now we want to move on to vote to accept the following donations and grants. And always we're very, very thankful and fortunate for the generosity that both foundations and individuals in town provide us. First is a Middleton Food Pantry donation from the Rotary Foundation of $600. And the second is the Middleton Food Pantry donation of $500 from our own Susan Muzzychuck in town. Thank you. And a Council on Aging $5,000 grant from Elder Services of Merrimack Valley to provide nutrition and outreach services during this COVID-19. And if it's okay for me to lump those together?
Yep, yes. And I would make that motion with thanks.
Very much. That second?
Second.
And a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Moreski, please, with the roll call vote.
Selectman Cresta.
Yes.
Selectman Hooton.
Yes.
Selectman Prentakis.
Yes.
Selectman Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously, and as always, yes, much thanks. Okay, if we, I don't recognize or I'm aware of any new business that we have. If that's, I'll give anyone one more chance here. If there's nothing else, then there is for me. I want to one more time advertise the Middleton Adults Trail Alliance, and it's probably only the 6 of us left, but we did become a 501c3 charity, so your donations are tax deductible, but also you can check us out with other ideas and donations of volunteering your time or being part of us in any way. Please, you'll see it in the mail this week. Give it a look and try try to help us bring a rail trail here to Middleton. Thank you very much. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you very much.
Rick, I already got it. Zach,
Very
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Night, thank you.